The argument has to be made for each individual case on the basis of the circumstances of each individual debt, and not as a general statement that maybe Use Cogens is relevant to the whole issue. When you go to certain segments which are really discussed even in international legal settings, for example, knowledge of the lenders, both in the context of the codification of the law of state responsibility by the International Law Commission, and right now responsibility of international organizations, there are articles and passages on the knowledge of lenders. Is it imputed knowledge? Is it knowledge that you actually had? In the Tinoco case, in the slide that Professor Reinisch showed, Taft said the bank knew, not should have known. And so there is this question of is it imputed knowledge, is it actual knowledge? And knowledge of what? That is the main point. If I look once again at Professor Reinisch's paper, you have in paragraph 152 the sentence to the effect that the status of the regime of General Suharto as an odious regime is widely accepted, and then further down in 155, in the case of Indonesia, there is clear evidence that the Federal Republic of Germany was aware of this absence of legitimacy in representation. So even without looking at the substance of the claim that is being made here about the Suharto regime, once again, I'm not going to discuss the specific of any single country, the knowledge is not really of the odious debt. The knowledge becomes a knowledge of the odious regime. So what is the proposal that is being advanced? Is it that each lender should sit in judgment and say, oh, that is an odious regime, that is not, or that is an odious regime that will not raise as many objections in the international community as another odious regime may? I mean, big question mark about that.
Engaged in promoting, in complementing our promotion for good lending practices by complementing it with new initiatives, such as, for example, the STAR initiative comes to mind. Finally, when it comes to debt relief, the World Bank provides debt relief to the poorest and most heavily indebted countries in the world. And this debt relief is provided in the context of an international agreed framework with clear rules and procedures. And we are not only providing, the bank is the largest single provider of debt relief in the context of this initiative. And by today, 33 countries have benefited from debt relief under the HIPIC initiative, and more than 23 countries have reached the completion point today.
It is very important that each creditor, and the colleague from the World Bank must make that point, must know in advance under which circumstances the loan will in fact be repaid. If there's any doubt about the willingness of the debtor to repay, no credit will be granted. For instance, the World Bank, the IBRD, would be out of business because we grant loans. And to be able to grant loans, we must know that we're going to be repaid. If there's any uncertainty in that, we couldn't do business. And that will certainly not be good for humanity.
It's a don't ask, just pay sort of dynamic in the global economy. And I think what we're saying is that there need to be rules that allow these debts to be challenged. And in the absence of those rules, you're going to see governments that are going to face very difficult decisions, and like you said, are going to face very severe consequences if they do decide to repudiate. But just because that's the way it is, doesn't mean that the repayment they're making is moral or justified. In the case of apartheid South Africa, I don't think we should be sort of smug about the fact that the government of South Africa is repaying a debt that was used to oppress the majority of people in South Africa. That may be what they are forced to do with the current financial markets, but it certainly isn't the moral or just outcome. I think that's what we're trying to move towards with this conversation.
Thank you.
The common sense and the natural goodness and even natural law, or whatever you say, the common decency of people is insisting that the current arrangement is wrong. It has to be changed. We don't care who has to change. We just need it to be changed. So what the system needs is an international bankruptcy or international debt workout mechanism that is independent of all creditors, including the IMF. This is what international law needs to change, and it is scholars such as the one we've heard today who are leading the way. International law is formed by customary law. treaties, practice of nations, and also the writing of legal scholars. And the scholars of the past are getting outdated by what we have heard today, and thank goodness.
This is also about the taxpayers in the South making use of our money well to decide what to pay for if these are things that we actually benefited from. So we shouldn't just be talking about the northern taxpayers as if this is all about just the money in the north. It is our money that is being used to pay for these loans.
The simple answer is that poverty is an insult to the human spirit. I render that story here because we give voice not only to our constituents and civil society, but to the many who have no voice and for whom hopefully we speak. Thank you again for this wonderful occasion.